Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Lora Cecere.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. My name is Lora Cecere, and I am excited today to interview Heather Moe. Heather is a project engineer for a company called ESRI. They make mapping software, great mapping software. And Heather and I met at an Informs conference. She asked me to be a guest speaker. And today I wanted to interview Heather because I wanted to get a voice of a young woman really trying to drive awareness of analytics for women. So Heather, welcome to the show. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I've got a little bit of a different history. I graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology with a degree in biology. After that, I joined as a commissioned officer in a uniform service called the NOAA Corps, a very small branch of the uniform service. So with that, I had 3 assignments. I was a bridge officer on a fisheries research ship. I then conducted climate science research down at Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, and then as a scientist looking at marine protected areas. Well, in the NOAA Corps, I first learned of the field of operations research, and that's really where I found the path that I wanted. I'd always had an interest in math, but couldn't quite figure out how to make it useful. So I got a master's degree from Kansas State in operations research. And then my last semester had an internship at ESRI and have been here ever since as a member of the network analyst team working on their vehicle routing problem solver.
Well, Heather, you were kind enough to invite me to be the speaker at an event sponsored by WORMS, W-O-R-M-S. Can you tell the audience a little bit about WORMS? It's a funny name for a women's group.
Yeah, I think we enjoy the acronym a little bit more than we probably should, but WORMS is Women in ORMS, so it's a forum within Informs. The main mission of it is to encourage women into the fields of operations research, management science, analytics, and then also promote discussing those issues that women face when they're in that profession. So we tend to do this with 2 main approaches. The first is to give out some awards. So we do that both on the experienced women side, those that champion women in the field, and then also to try and encourage the newer folks by providing some travel funds to conferences. And then the second thing we do is at the Informs conferences, host sessions and events to try and promote that awareness and get the discussion going. So I've been the industry liaison for them for the last 2 years, and that means my main role is to help with the events that we put on at the analytics conference that we just had. Yeah, I wish I had a great answer for that, but it seems to be the trend, although I do see more student on the women's side, and so maybe that trend is changing. But yeah, it's probably goes back to the older days where math and science were deemed hard by women, and so they didn't get involved in it, or they weren't encouraged into it. But it's definitely noticeable as you walk around the hallways. So
you were kind enough to invite me to speak, and I had a good time. It was a great discussion, and I thought a very spirited interaction. What spoke to you? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I really enjoyed your speaking as well. What caught my attention was the way you were able to answer questions so directly. I often see people take tangents and not actually go back and answer the question. So I want to say thank you again for actually answering what people were asking. I had 2 main takeaways from what you had discussed. The first one that really struck home with me, and then I was able to use almost immediately, was you encouraged us to do what we want to do what we like, and not be pressured into those roles we don't like. So I'm not really good at saying no, especially to work things. And so I struggle with that, but I was able to use it while at that conference. So the typical trajectory for worms is you start out in sort of the industry liaison or a different liaison role like I've been in, and then you move into elected roles. So stuff like the communications officer, treasury, meeting secretary, and those are roles that just don't interest me. I want to keep promoting women in this field, but not through that role. And so I had the courage to say, no, I like what I'm doing. I like helping with these events, and I'd like to stay here for at least another year. The second point that you made that really resonated with me was you had mentioned a gentleman early in your career that helped you, and I'm terrible with names, so I don't remember his name. But you encouraged the room
his
to
name,
be
Heather,
like
was
him.
Bob Marsden. He was the most wonderful guy in the world. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Bob. And unfortunately, I can't find his family, and I can't find anyone who knows him to thank him. So, but he was a great guy.
Yeah, well, maybe someone will hear this and know the name to be able to reach out. But you encouraged the room to be like Bob. Not to find your Bob, but to be like him. And I think that's a piece of advice that I usually hear the other direction of. I usually hear people encouraged to find a mentor or a sponsor, but I liked how you flipped that to be that mentor and sponsor and help out. And I think there's a lot of ways, even new in your career, you can help promote someone just by echoing that they had a great idea or encouraging them to speak up, stuff like that. You can do even from the very start of your own career. So those were my two main takeaways, but you definitely touched several other people as they came up to talk to me about it afterwards.
Well, awesome. I think so many people, want to find a mentor for themselves, but don't realize that they may not have a vice president title or lots of experience, but they can mentor and help others if they're open to the outcome and, approachable. And so many times people are so focused on getting others to help them that they forget that they might be a resource for other people. So that's a great takeaway. But, lots of men listen to my podcast. In fact, 80% of senior jobs in supply chain are men, and most of the people that listen to my podcast are senior. What about women and encouraging women and helping women to get into the field? What advice would you have for them? And then what advice would you have for women that are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I guess the advice I would give isn't specifically geared towards women, but something that we're less good at naturally. But it would be to go to meetings early so that you can grab a seat at the main table. And then I would encourage them to speak up when they have stuff to contribute. So the conference rooms I've seen over the years, they all have like a main table. It's usually long and narrow with seats all around it. And then around the periphery, there's another ring of chairs for when the meetings are larger. And I've noticed the people that sit at the main table and engage in the conversation are the ones that end up having their vision materialize into work. And the people that sit sort of on the periphery are the ones that just get work assigned to them. And so for being able to promote your own career and the views that you find dear and would be helpful for the company, I would advise going and sitting at that main table and participate in the conversation.
And what about younger women that may be going through school or perhaps even in high school? What would you tell them about a career in analytics? What does it take to succeed, and what are the skills that are really necessary?
Yeah, I think a really strong foundation in math and sort of the business knowledge would be important to find. But what has really helped me is an ability to communicate it clearly. And so I think spending some extra time on being able to have clear written communication and being able to present and speak, answer questions clearly would be very helpful.
Well, Heather, thank you for being on my show today, and thank you for volunteering to be part of WORMS, which is the Women in Operations Research. What will WORMS be doing out throughout the year that other women in analytics can reach out to you and get involved in?
So we will have several events at the Informs annual meeting, which is in Seattle in October. I don't remember the exact dates. So they've got a whole plan of events there. And I believe our industry liaison is also working on an event at the international conference, which is going to be in Cancun this year. And then you can always join WORMS and help plan these events or contribute to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. Any last words of advice before we close?
No, I think I'm tapped out.
Okay. Well, thanks again for being a volunteer in the industry. I really enjoyed working with you for the event. I found that you were very good at hosting the event and helping me as a speaker, and I appreciate that. And, you know, during the event, Heather, there was a spirited dialogue when I encouraged women to use humor and not necessarily have a chip on their shoulder. So thank you for bearing with us as we talk through that. That got a little heated. I appreciated your maturity. Take care and have a good day.
It ended up being great. Thank you so much.
Bye now.